Hi, I'm Terry Murphy, the founder of the Women's Wisdom Network, host of Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, and In the Men's Room with Murph. And today I have a spectacular man in the men's room with me. He is Steve Spangler. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's basically on fire. Go ahead, Steve.
No, please. I was just, we're in Colorado, so just warming up just a tiny little bit. It's cold here.
Yeah, he's in Colorado. He started off as a science teacher and now is the author of 7 books. He's a TV personality, been featured on Good Morning America, the History Channel, Food Network. And have you ever heard of Ellen DeGeneres? The most outrageous things. Most popular for Mentos and Diet Coke, I'm sure. All starting as this humble science teacher who just decided that science had to be more ubiquitous to kids. And you're just a little bit of a bad child. Seriously.
That's what you would say, wouldn't you? You would look at this and go, this guy is bad. So, no, it's just practical things, Murph. For example, we're meeting, just to pull the curtain back, we're meeting this morning, and the coffee has been great. But here's the problem with coffee is that when you add a little of the creamer and then a little of the sugar, then you got to find a spoon. Well, this isn't even in my house, but we can talk about that later. So, and then you got to stir it. Then you're going to dirty the spoon, run the dishwasher. You get the whole idea. So here's what you do instead. You just get one of these boards. All right. So you just carry this board around with you wherever you go. And then you just hook the little things to it like this. And then if you need to stir your coffee, just so that your people can see, you just put the cup right here like this. And then what you do is you just take this. Now you understand the first rule that I taught kids years ago was don't try this at home. Try it at a friend's home. Okay, so here you go, like this. You go, ready? Oh, see, like this. You just do this, and look at that. The coffee has never been any better. I know for those people listening, we spun it around on a board, and I don't know why it didn't fly off and kill somebody along the way. But cheers to you. Good morning. My job is to make sure that we have kids who can find that passion. They don't even know that they are supposed to like science, but my job is to make sure they're at least introduced to it. These little sparks are happening so that someday they go, maybe that's a good idea. That could be a really good idea.
That's terrifying. I imagine mothers are going to be freaking out that have seen this. The founder of Be Amazing Toys, in the Guinness World Records for the largest physics experiment. We'll talk about that in a minute.
You have done research. What are you doing? You're on the internet a lot, aren't you?
I am a stalker. Okay. The creative. My favorite is that you're the dad of 3 absolutely gorgeous boys. It goes on and on, but this clearly, I mean, people have their passions, Steve, and yours is fun with science. I've watched you do amazing things that are shocking. TikTok, 1.2 million followers, 16.5 million likes, and that's just in November. I'm sure it's grown since then. You're like a force to be reckoned with. But I want our attendees to understand what this passion is and how you connected it to such a global legacy and impact. My nephews thought I was the most boring aunt they had until I sent them some fake snow and a number of other things that you have that you have in your toy factory. How did this really escalate? Would you share?
Yeah, so I think you framed it really, really nicely, and that is that I'm at this point here where I wish I would have understood what I was doing when I was 24. I didn't. So I just blindly did this and somehow it worked. But I realized pretty early on that there was this affinity for teaching. And as much, we got to be really careful as adults. I think the message for everybody who's listening is we have to be careful not to correct our kids. It was Peter Benson with the Search Institute that said everybody needs a spark, everybody needs to champion that cause, and then you need to support the cause. And the champion of the cause can't be the people who are closest to you, like your parents, because they'll correct the course, right? And course correction means, Steve, you really don't need to be a teacher. You know that you can do better than that. Why don't we do? And so those are the words that I heard from some family members. And so you listen to the family, but then your heart somehow goes, maybe you should be here and here. And you try different things. But once you find that passion and you embrace it, everything falls into play. And so that's kind of what happened early on. I realized that my job was not to teach science in a classroom, although I did for 11 years. I had a principal who told me I never got a classroom. So I'll cut to the chase, Terry. I started as a science teacher in public schools in Cherry Creek or in Centennial, Colorado, the Cherry Creek School District. And the first year that I was hired, I didn't get a room. My principal said to me, we don't have a room. This was after being hired in May, going through the entire summer, going, oh, I'm going to be a third grade teacher, whatever it is. And she reduced me to an AV cart. Now, there's people listening now that have no clue what an audio visual cart is. But years ago, when the earth was still cooling, there was this thing, and it had 4 wheels, and we would push film projectors around and big TVs that would fall over on people, and it had to be strapped down and everything. So she said, this is your classroom. She says, the best thing you can do, and the lesson was here, great teachers are made by the teacher next door. She says, so the best thing that I can do is to have you put all your stuff, because that's how I went to the interview. Can you imagine me at the interview going like this? Hey, take a look at this. So, you know, most people in an interview have like a resume. I had a blowtorch. And so you take this, and for the people who are watching, you put the powder in the blowtorch like this. Little did I know that you're not supposed to have a blowtorch in a school. But then here, I'll stand back a little bit just so you can see. And then you light it up on fire. And then that ball of fire got everyone's attention. It showed them that the fire alarm system didn't work in the school that I was hired in. And so that was corrected the next year. But I had all my junk, and I had my book that caught on fire and everything else that was there. And she said, I want you to put your stuff on the cart, and I want you to wheel it from room to room. She says, because that's how you're going to meet the greatest teachers on the planet. She says, I'm going to give you the gift of watching them teach. Now, for those people who are listening, you have to go, okay, what does this mean to me? It means I'm a manager. It means I'm a CEO. It means that I'm a leader. I'm whoever it might be. We realize that we become better because of the people around us. And once we embrace that idea that the people around us make us better, right? Great managers are made by the manager next door. Great CEOs are made by frontline people who will teach you something if you just take the time to listen and to reflect on that. And so I was the Susan Lucci of elementary. I didn't get the room the first year. I didn't get the room the second year. I was reduced to a cart, and everybody knew me as the a la carte science guy. And I would just wheel my stuff around and do my thing. And when she finally retired, my principal finally retired, smart lady. During the retirement party, we all got a chance to say something. And I just candidly raised my hand and I said, so I didn't get a room. And there was silence in the room. And she looked at me and she said, you never were going to get a room. Why would I ever put you in a room? She goes, that's like putting an animal in a cage and just watching the animal. She says, you were of best service to others by doing it. And guess what? I was your leader and you followed. And she says, that was a unique combination that just happened to work for us. We're better because of it. And hopefully you're a better teacher because of it. It's the best lesson I could ever imagine.
Backstory. What a backstory. So that's amazing. That's really an amazing beginning, because for you, it was showtime. I mean, almost every time you had to re-engage. They weren't used to that. You'd walk in, you'd disrupt the energy, and then continue to disrupt. Speaking of disruption, you said you're not in your kitchen. So you're using someone else's kitchen.
We're dog sitting. So no. So we have a TV show, a nationally syndicated TV show. We're in our 4th season. It's called DIY Sci. It appears on CW Network and Fox. And so when you're working out in the morning and you're looking up expecting to see the news and you see some guy making 50 gallons of slime, dropping it off of a tower, that's me. And so that's the show. This is the home that we were going to shoot season 4 of DIY Sci. And we started that production last year at this time. And then this little thing called COVID happened and we had the house and we just stayed in the house. So when I say we, my small little team, I sold 2 of our product companies, but we kept the consulting and the speaking and the TV businesses. And so my little editing team and production team, we stayed here in the house and kept producing. And this is where I've been for 9 months. This is how TikTok was born. We've done almost 250 long format videos here to help support teachers and to help support parents from within this. So people look at this like, so where'd you get the set and who was your set designer? And you go, it's just someone's kitchen, you know? But again, it was always going back to that principle saying, how do you be of service to others? Because as soon as you shift the focus and you're of service to others, when COVID happened, we started doing a Facebook Live on a Wednesday at 2 p.m. Wednesday at 2 p.m. Facebook Live. About 14 people showed up. No, 45,000 people a week would show up to our Facebook Live because they needed ideas. They needed help. What do I do with this and this? And can you do something with this? And what can I do to engage our kids? Because you can't lose the momentum. So overnight, parents became teachers. Overnight, teachers became visual learners and teachers, and they didn't understand this platform. None of us did. And so the only way you get good is to log hours in this little platform that we have here. So this is where I've been for 9 months, Terry. This is it.
Well, it's definitely interesting because I know what you can do with some of those gadgets. I've watched you do that. You just said something that's pretty profound, and that's pretty much how you really transformed science, because it became experiential rather than content dump. I mean, you know that content dump worked way back in the day when you said the earth was cooling. And now it's so experiential because you engage the kids. And I've watched you do that. You've got, not only do you have TikTok and Facebook, but you've got the television show. You also do a cruise, or have done a cruise on Holland American Cruise Lines. And that is an environment that's totally science curriculum. How do you do that? Tell us a little bit about that one.
So from a business standpoint, here's what happened. So now, again, pull the curtain back. My job is to help teachers become better teachers. So it looks from a public perspective that I teach kids. I was only in the classroom for 11 years. When I left the classroom, and I had logged almost 4,500 school assemblies for 15 years. So that means you pack your stuff in a box and you go to a school and you do an assembly. And in the speaking world, we'd call it a gig, at the Ramcota, and then you're off to the next one. So I've played the best gyms you could ever imagine across the country. I've done 4,500 of those for kids. So I thought I had something to say about the science of engagement and understanding engagement firsthand. So all of my work from about 2003 on, aside from the product businesses, was focused on training teachers, helping teachers become the best science teachers possible. And where we needed the greatest help was in elementary. So early childhood and elementary. That's where everybody else was playing in a different world. So from a business standpoint, there are already people pushing hard in middle school and in high school, and those people didn't, quote unquote, need help. The truth of the matter is that kids don't fall in love with science in middle school or high school. They fall in love before they're 7 years old. And if we can't initiate that and we can't foster that, because everyone knows that when you're in a relationship, it can go through a rocky period of time, like a bad teacher, so to speak, in this metaphor, and still come out on the other side, right? And but if they're not in love with it, trying to get them to fall in love with something when so many other things are happening when you are 13 to 18 years old, almost impossible. So I just realized that the research, just follow the research and just go, guess I should probably do that. So here we are working with teachers. And when they come to your summer workshops and they come to your full day programs, you remember long before this on the computer, and you're traveling around the country and everything, and they look at you and there's a small group that still says, do something and I'll do it. I swear I'll follow. Do something and I'll do it. And you go, what would be the craziest thing in the world? Well, how about doing professional development for teachers on a cruise line?
Yeah.
Number one, could you even get people to do it? Number two, what would happen with the cruise line? Would they allow me to bring in my stuff? And cut to the chase, we signed the deal with Carnival first. The very first year we did it with Carnival. We were going to go to Alaska. We had gone as a family. I couldn't stop thinking about this educational opportunity to learn about Alaska. Every time the naturalist came on to talk, everybody else was playing bunco or doing some drinking or whatever it was. And I was like, tell me about these glaciers. So I thought, well, we'll just do this. While the day's at sea, I'll do my little science experiments and then we'll have these great excursions. Well, when Carnival got wind of who I was and what I did online and the videos that were out there, they came to me and said, that's not going to happen at all. And I said, well, no, I'm already booked. I send the contract. And they go, you booked, but you're not bringing anything on the ship. And I said, well, I'll just bring some, like, this diaper stuff that I use and these cotton swabs. And they said, no, you're bringing zero. So we were either faced with refunding 100 people who had said yes to Science at Sea. You can learn about it by going to scienceatsea.com, or I could come up with a new strategy. So I just had to find me as a life science teacher and find out how we could turn these into lectures and how we could do all this cool stuff on board. So again, what does this mean to me listening to this podcast? It means that we were heading down a path. There was a change. And so not only do you embrace the change, but you look around and you start that net zero kind of thing, right? Neil Cobain talks about that diagonal thinking, you know? So zero-based thinking, that you stop everything and you go, if I had to start all over again, what would I do? This is exactly what we did. Pitched it to the 100 people who had said yes. And they're like, yeah, as long as we're just, and I didn't realize what they wanted. They wanted hang time. They wanted to be together with a group of people that what I thought was important wasn't nearly as important as if I would have just listened to what they thought was important. And I've learned along the way. So we've done 10 of those cruises. Unfortunately, last year was canceled, and I think it's premature for this year. I just don't think people want to be on a cruise ship in June right now. So we'll look at 2022. How's that?
Well, I think so. We'll be having you back if you will agree to it. So how did Ellen DeGeneres come along? Because there you are. I mean, I know just from the backstory, because we're friends, that she gave you some pretty amazing projects that you had to just pray and hope everything worked, because they were huge. If I recall, she said, I want them big and I want them messy.
Big and messy. First of all, Ellen was kind enough to invite me on the show because her producers, a lot of people don't know this, but if you had a PR firm, so let's say that you're a singer and you have a PR firm and you hire the PR firm and you hit the Ellen show and you go, put me on, I'm going to be great. They don't bring those people on. They think that they need to find the talent. So at 6 a.m., they have an entire staff of interns that do nothing but scour the internet for 2 hours, share their recommendations by 8 a.m. to the first level of producers, who share those recommendations by 9 a.m. to the senior level producers, who then pitch those to the executive producers that share it with Ellen. And by noon, somebody is probably booked to be on the show the next day or the following day. That's how it happens every single day. So I happen to be doing this little thing called YouTube. And we were pumping out videos on YouTube. And that's a whole nother story. And so we're pumping out videos. And every week we'd pump out something that was kind of cool to see. And one of their producers, for some reason, was on our list. And our feed would show up all the time and learning how to do experiments. And so reached out to me and said, hey, would you be kind of interested in doing some experiments on the Ellen show? And it's like, yeah, I think that would be a whole lot of fun. And they asked, have you ever done TV before? Two choices, big pivotal moment that I didn't realize that, thank God I chose the right button, right? Because when you say, oh, I've done lots of TV, I've done thousands of segments, which I had at the point, did thousands of things, I've got this. Then that telegraphs to them, we didn't find gold. It's been here for a while. Hopefully it's as shiny as we think. But when you go, I've done a lot of local stuff, but nothing like the Ellen show. You can see them lean in and go, you know what? Another producer's going to, I didn't realize that 3 producers always call before they say yes. So the very first time that I was on, they carefully picked everything. And I didn't realize I couldn't touch my props because of the union. And my wife and I stayed in the green room. And for some reason, the A material worked. She breathed the gas and it changed her voice. The elephant's toothpaste went all over the place. That's now become like every science person has to do this thing called elephant's toothpaste. Everybody does it. And then I shot smoke rings out of the trash can. You've seen me do this on stage. I've closed my stage act or my in-person act for years. So I figure I'm just pulling out the A material and see if she likes it. Got done with the segment. She looked at one of her producers, gave the nod, which I didn't realize what the nod meant, but he walked over to me. You know him as Andy. So if you watch the show, it's the average Andy. Andy Lasner came over to me and said, hey, don't do the Tonight Show, and we'll have you back in 2 months. And I said, oh, I've never done the Tonight Show. And the producer who was working with me grabbed me and goes, yes, he has, Andy. He's just screwing with you. And we walked off. I looked at my guy going, hey, buddy, I've never done it. He goes, they'll call in 2 weeks. So you've done it. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, just wait and see. Your decision. You can either stay with us or you're welcome to do some other shows as well.
Okay.
And I made the decision to stay with them. So almost like clockwork, the Tonight Show called, somebody from the Tonight Show. Hey, we're thinking about science and your name just popped up. We saw you on the internet. That's all baloney, right? Because they all steal guests from each other. And I said, oh, I'm so honored. But I think I'm going to stick with the Ellen Show just because they've invited me back. And the guy immediately went, they got you. And he looked at me and he said, well, we were talking on the phone. He said, hey, stick with her. She's on fire, a real quality person. So I never did the Tonight Show, and I didn't do Regis and Kelly, and I didn't do the Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, and those that all called and said, hey, we're thinking about science because it's a very incestuous business. So again, what does this do? Loyalty. Because of that loyalty, when it came time to do a book, guess who allowed me to be able to use pictures from the book, from the show, who gave me comped, so to speak, the ability to use stuff that I would have had to have licensed for thousands and thousands of dollars a year. And Ellen was so kind to me to be able to go, hey, you've been loyal to me. Thank you. And I just celebrated my 23rd time on the show.
I was going to say, you've been there 23 times. What was the biggest, well, I know of a couple, but I want you to tell us, what was one of the biggest events you had with Ellen that, you're just like, wow. I mean, people were, I know you spent weeks sometimes putting things together.
Oh, you do. And it all changes at the very last second. So what's so amazing to me is whatever we plan, I've learned to just be flexible as you're kind of coming in. And the very first time, I remember it's during those pitch meetings, the producer calls you and says, hey, we're thinking about having you in February or something. What are you working on? I said, damnedest thing. If you take cornstarch and water and you mix it together, you can roll it in your hand. It becomes a solid and a liquid at the same time. So I blew this up and I'm going to put it in a box about this big, like a sweater container that you put under your bed. We're going to fill it with cornstarch and water. And then Ellen could put her toes in there and she could step on it and it'd be like she's walking on water. And there's this lackluster response going, right. So how much more could you do? Well, I could probably do 2 of those tubs. And he's like, so have you ever thought bigger? Like, what's the biggest thing? And I go, well, a swimming pool, but or a hot tub, or just something like that. And he goes, hot tub. That's like a really big hot tub, right? I went, yeah, but you don't understand. He goes, why don't you work the math out? Call me back when you got it. And let's just talk about it. It's just for fun. One thing led to another. The next thing you know, I'm in Los Angeles at a place where there's cement trucks, 2,500 boxes of cornstarch, a garden hose, 800 gallons of water. We mixed this mixture up, drove it to the Burbank studio, and 3 hours later, we were on camera pouring it into this thing with Ellen walking across. That's the craziest. And I shut them down every step of the way. I said, you can't do this because it's 2,500 boxes. I don't even know where you're going to get that. But I could probably. And finally, the producer was so kind to be able to say a couple of things. Number one, your job isn't to figure that out. We have dozens of people who are highly paid to figure this shit out. So you don't have to worry about that. Oopsie. You don't have to worry about that at all. All right. Number two, the cleanup isn't your problem, because I told him 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't do this. And then the last thing is he said, let me see if you understand your place in this. Your job is to make her laugh and smile, because if she laughs and smiles, the audience laughs and smiles, and I get to keep my job and you get to come back for another segment. That's the hierarchy. So make sure
Wow.
she laughs and smiles. So I think while everybody talks about just how big this explosion was, how they Dexter everything, there are a couple things about Ellen. First thing is she never sees the segment ahead of time, and she's never briefed on it ahead of time, because she has told her producers after we met and did our first couple segments together, I don't want to know this. This is totally fun. The interaction and the play on TV is great. Number two, she's never made fun of me in all that time. It's so easy to reduce me to an off-color joke, to a dumb little science teacher, to the goofy, absent-minded guy. And you see all the other late-night guys toss their people off that way. It really is sad because they really come off as a character. And she's always treated me as a human being. She's always treated me as somebody who's passionate about doing this. And she happens to have a platform, and she's given me that opportunity with that platform as well. So I'm forever grateful that she allowed a science teacher from Littleton, Colorado, to be able to do what I'm doing.
Again, it's leveraging, it's the legacy of your experience and what you're doing that goes beyond your knowing. I mean, the people that have done the diet and the Mentos thing, I mean, I don't even know how you came up with that one. I mean, that one, how many millions of YouTubes was there up after you did that? Like,
well, let's bring everybody up to speed. So years ago, as a science teacher, you try to teach kids that a bottle of soda has carbon dioxide inside. You can get it out by shaking it up. You can also get it out by dropping things in. You've always seen somebody who salts their beer a little bit. That's the weirdest thing. But I had an uncle who put a little dash of salt in beer, and it would foam, and we thought that was great. Anything that you put inside that disrupts those bubbles that are in solution will come out. That's the easiest way to explain it. So for years, we took wintergreen lifesavers and dropped them into a bottle because they fit perfectly. And if you dropped them into a bottle perfectly at the same time, then all that carbon dioxide would run to the outside of the wintergreen lifesavers and would sit on the bottom and push up, and it would shoot up in the air. Now, how cool is that? So we rig bottles and make them trick bottles that would go off and whatever else. Well, as the story goes, wintergreen lifesavers changed their size. They got a little bit bigger and they wouldn't fit in the bottle. So we all started searching for, is there anything else in there? And there's sand that would work and other things. But something that was kind of sexy is this weird kind of eclectic candy called Mentos from Europe. Who likes Mentos? Well, at the time, nobody. But now it's pretty darn good. So you found out that if you drop Mentos in, holy moly, it shot way up in the air. So as a science teacher, well, as a guy who was doing lots of TV at the time, local TV and whatever else, I would go in and go, you guys check this out with Mentos. And so we'd do it on the air. I've done live TV for the last 27 years every week. So I logged almost 1,800 segments. And I always have to come up with stuff. So you put it in there and whatever. Well, it was September 2005. It was a nice fall day. The lady I work with, a lady by the name of Kim Christensen, we're in the backyard. And I said to Kim, hey, we're going to do the Mentos thing. And the reason it became Diet Coke and Mentos is because she was positioned in front of the Diet Coke. I was positioned in front of the Diet Pepsi. We did that because we're a TV station and didn't want to make the advertisers mad. So I was Pepsi. She was, and Diet, because Diet's not sticky. People forget that, right? Basic science. There's no sugar in Diet Coke. That's why it's called Diet Coke. So it's not sticky. You can put it all over you. It's not sticky at all. The Mentos can be sticky, but so I just didn't want sticky soda everywhere. I'd done it in the studio, had to clean that up, but this was outside. Kim's next to me, live TV, 4 o'clock. It's called Soft News. And it's like, Steve Spangler's here. Look at this. I go, Kim, check this out. This is the craziest thing. Put the Mentos in this test tube, pull it away. Well, she didn't pull her body away fast enough. The stupid stuff comes up, whoosh, goes onto her. Oh. She's dressed in this gorgeous pink St. John's outfit that you'll see on YouTube if you look for the original video. And it gets in her hair. Well, she did it 2 more times. And I couldn't convince her that the problem was you got to step back. So the audience loved it. Well, there's no time for her to go home. She's a head anchor. So that means that she looked like this for the rest of 4 o'clock, the 5 o'clock, the 6 o'clock. They fixed her up a little bit for the 9 o'clock and the 10 o'clock. Every time they came back from break, it seemed like they're like, hey, welcome back. If you're wondering why Kim looks the way she does and we haven't changed it, look at what Steve Spangler did to her. So the blog post that came out was science experiment goes awry, news anchor gets soaked or something like that. So that little video that was sitting on this TV station that was owned by Gannett at the time, this is 2005, streaming was extremely expensive. Think about it. So back in the day, you paid per second for streaming. And so I, not realizing this is a bad thing, the next day after they put this on the little 9 News website, I emailed 200,000 teachers who were on my list. And I just said, hey, everybody, look at this link. Watch what happened on TV. I can't believe it. Well, we shut down the server. I got called in and they're like, we have traced this back to you. We actually found out that you sent out a list. I said, well, I just want people to watch it. They go, you can't do that. It costs us too much money. These people aren't even from Colorado. Shows you how short-sighted we were in September of 2005. So I went into an editing bay. I took the video, I scraped it, and I uploaded it to this website that was 3 months old called YouTube. And that's it.
And so how many followers do you have on YouTube now?
Well, we have combined YouTube, TikTok, and all those. We just crossed 1 billion views. So from a follower standpoint, we have about 500,000. We have probably 500,000 to 700,000 subscribers on YouTube. 1.2 million on TikTok. It's just a different platform, different thing. But you know what you learn from all those things is that here is this medium, and the only reason it took off on YouTube is because here is this 3-month-old eclectic kind of weird thing where people are searching for stuff to go, wait, I could do that, and if I do it, I'm going to upload because I'm going to make my channel. So what I realized as a teacher was this was the perfect platform to leave open space for people to engage. Same with our students in the classroom. I mean, 20 some years to teach, you go, wow, if students are offered the opportunity to engage, to actually put their own thoughts into the conversation, to ask what if, and then actually try it. Wow, they take advantage and they take responsibility for their own learning, and they want to learn more. And it happened in business as well. We got the deal with Mentos because the Mentos people, I had contacted Mentos when we started doing this years, long before we ever did the YouTube thing. And they called back and after this thing had gone viral, which wasn't much at all, you know, back in 2005. And they said, I flew down, saw Freddie Van Mel, and they said, so what do you want? What do you want? And I said, what do I want? I don't know. I want all North American distribution rights for all Mentos that are not being used for candy, but are being used for like a toy or a science experiment, something like that. Knowing that people were going to steal my idea. If I could lock up the supply, then I could probably introduce my toy on the market. And I had invented this little toy that drops Mentos into Diet Coke and shoots the Coke everywhere and whatever else. And they said, yes. They said, we think it's the dumbest thing in the world, but we're going to say yes to this. So we could buy Mentos through our company at the time. And within about 8 months, it was in Target. So Steve Spangler's Geyser tube was in Target. And one led to the next. So I couldn't get their attention one way. So I had to sneak around and kind of get their attention in a little bit different way.
So interesting. It's so interesting because at the core of what you're doing, it's about engagement. It's about positioning something. And you talked about the roadblock versus the rabbit hole and having to go a different direction. That's unfortunately what happens when there's a roadblock. I mean, we get all flustered, but at the end of the day, you will discover something that you would not have ordinarily discovered. And I think you've done that. Amazing experiences for kids. Well, I've been there where it's been amazing experiences for adults that will never recover. The National Speakers Association gave you the Hall of Fame in 2010. You were one of the 100 selected partners for YouTube Original Initiative. I mean, it's quite a legacy for a science teacher from Colorado.
People have been very kind, really kind along the way. The YouTube piece was interesting because, again, we got their attention. Everything kind of comes back. Terry, I should do a book about this. Everything kind of comes back. Yeah. I'm too busy doing science books about experiments to do with milk and food coloring. But, it's funny how everything kind of comes back. We got Mentos' attention, by the behaviors that were there. We got Ellen's attention by being visible. You know, you mentioned the National Speakers Association. I just got to tell you this one thing. It's funny how your friends become even better friends once you hit something where they think they can be on as well. So we have lots of people we know in the National Speakers Association. And after the first couple of times on Ellen, that next summer, people are like, Steve, could you get me the producer's name? I've got a story. Ellen needs to hear it. And you're just like, oh God, I don't want to do that to I can't do it. So finally, I had befriended my producer enough to be able to pick up the phone and call him and say, could you just give me some advice? What do I do with these people who are coming out of the woodworks? There's sad stories. There's people who have cancer stories. He goes, oh, I've heard them all. He says, here's what you need to say. He says, so write this down. And so like a fool, I write this down. Hey, I take out my little pad and everything. He goes, we found you and we're going to find your friends if they'll do this thing. Be visible. If you're visible, we'll find you. He says, we got the best people scouring the internet. So if you're doing something amazing and it's out there, we're going to find you and put you. So I remember at the National Speakers Association getting to speak on the main stage and saying, well, I know that many of you have a story you want to tell Ellen. And so I have got the contact for you. I can't believe I'm going to put it up on stage, but here it is. And so the PowerPoint flashed up just those two words, be visible. And you can see the audience go, we hate you. Yeah. And, I understand, but that seems to be the deal, because if I flood them with you, then they didn't get a chance to discover you. Part of the fun is the hunt, right? And so if we realize that and we're to be hunted, we're in a business where it's fun for people to find us, then you don't tell them everything up front. I think it's so fun that you found stuff. I don't even know where you found some of that stuff, Terry, that you're talking about right now. It is kind of fun. I know you can find it. But part of that, I have to tell you, you weren't played, but part of that is just sitting there on those pages that aren't all that fantastic. But when you come across something, you go, holy wait, I've never heard about this. Now all of a sudden you and I have something to talk about. It's one of those engagement strategies that from a customer standpoint, when the Patagonia customers, for example, realize what they really do in terms of their social awareness and what they're trying to do with their brand and just how they're interacting with the environment, people are like, holy moly. And then they share that, because we share what we find, and that's that natural viral quality.
And what we find valuable and what we find pleasant and experiential, it's about the experience. And for me, it's the authenticity and the transparency that you bring to the table. With these experiments help you learn, but they help you learn through doing instead of just sitting. And I have to tell you, I had no idea, but you and I worked together on the project of Pepperdine. I got to meet your family, and it's amazing.
Those kids love you, Terry. My boys sat there and they're like, Dad, there's this lady by the name, she goes by Murph, but it's Terry Murphy. And you go, no kidding. Tell me about Terry Murphy. Would you tell me about Ms. Murphy?
Yeah.
So how fun. But isn't that fun that at a certain point in our life, I think you got to have a little bit of gray hair, maybe just that you don't, but I do, to finally have a group of kids, because I've done so many school shows, but I was in control when they're really asking you for life advice. Right. And that's exactly what we get to do at Pepperdine, is to share some ideas with those kids. I still go into science mode, and I'd much rather blow up something than give you advice, right? But I have to realize that this is that point at 54 years old where I've got to take some of these things and say, so what did this mean to me? And how did I get to this point? And I'm hopeful that you'll find your passion as well. Have you seen the movie Soul yet? Have you seen Pixar's Soul? Watch it.
I heard it's good.
Super deep. But that whole idea, that transformative idea of this is what we're supposed to be doing. And you don't make that realization. And it's never too late. But oh my gosh, when it's in your soul, this is what you're supposed to be.
I'm going to recommend it to, I want to thank you for joining us. Steve, I know that people that are hearing this, who they need to know where to find you. There's several places. I mean, you've got Six Science, you've got the television shows, which just so happened last Saturday, I happened to be walking by and seeing you blow up a watermelon.
At the Franklin Institute, right?
Yeah.
At the Franklin.
What is he doing? You're so much more fun. You're just so much more fun.
You're fun. Hey, if everybody just goes to stevespangler.com, we'll talk about it another time. I need your business advice and that kind of thing. But we sold Steve Spangler Science. So that was the company, a couple companies that my wife and I had created and nurtured through for 25 years. And so we sold those to some large education companies. So everything that I'm doing right now is just at stevespangler.com. Learn about the TV show. You can learn what we're doing for STEM teachers and how we can kind of help parents, but everything just at stevespangler.com.
And we can find you on those stations that you mentioned earlier because you're on television a lot. I want to say something to the Women's Wisdom Network and the people that are watching that Renee is the force.
You should have her on.
I've asked, but I'm going to ask carefully because Renee she gets it done. You want her on your side, and she's got this this little Mary Poppins kind of sweet face. Of course, man, she's got it. Anyway, I so appreciate your joining us. I hope you'll join us again sometime soon. We're going to put you all over because we want people to smile today, and you can make that happen. Thanks so much for joining us here at Realty Times.
Thank you. Spin the coffee around. Seriously, spin it around. It'll be great for you, Terry. Do not worry. It'll just be fine. All right. People are going to be coming in going, why are we doing this? This is the craziest thing. And the answer is because you can, Terry. You can. All right. Have a great new year. Here's to 2021.
Ciao. Thank you.